The device I built as a joke accidentally opened a portal to somewhere else. I had always loved tinkering with gadgets, even if most of my experiments never went anywhere. My friends laughed at me, calling me the mad scientist of our group, but I didn't mind. The truth was, I liked being unpredictable, building things no one expected, and most of all, I loved the thrill of testing something absurd just to see what would happen. It all started on a dull Friday evening. I was in my small apartment, scattered with wires, metal parts, and half-finished gadgets. The idea struck me while I was sipping cold coffee. What if I built a device that could teleport objects just a few inches? Nothing dangerous, of course, just a playful experiment to impress my friends. I sketched the blueprints on a scrap piece of paper, laughing at myself for even considering it. By midnight, I had assembled a strange-looking contraption, a combination of LED lights, copper coils, and small spinning discs that hum with electricity. It didn't look like much, a clutter of wires and blinking lights, but I had a strange feeling of anticipation as I plugged it in. My cat, Nimbus, watched cautiously from across the room, tail twitching, clearly aware that tonight was not going to be ordinary. I picked up a pen, a simple ballpoint, and placed it on the center plate of the device. Then, with a deep breath, I pressed the red button. The device hummed louder, sparks flying in tiny arcs, and the air around it shimmered. My eyes widened. The pen disappeared. Just like that. 1 second, it was there. The next, nothing. I laughed nervously, assuming it had simply fallen into some hidden nook of the device. But then, a faint ripple appeared in the air above the plate. A sort of distortion, like heat waves rising from asphalt on a summer day. I leaned closer, curiosity overpowering caution, and realized it wasn't heat. It was a window, a tiny opening into something else. Through the shimmer, I saw shadows moving, shapes that didn't belong in my apartment. There were structures, enormous and alien, glowing softly under a dim, unfamiliar sky. I could make out figures walking, humanoid but not quite human, and strange creatures that seemed to float, twisting through the air as though gravity didn't apply to them. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and tripped over a toolbox, sending tools clattering across the floor. Nimbus hissed and darted under the sofa, eyes wide and unblinking. I grabbed the camera I had set up for my experiments and recorded the portal. Every second, my rational mind screamed, "This is impossible. This can't be real." Yet my hands shook as I held the lens steady, capturing the shimmer, the colors, the impossible structures. I tried to switch off the device, but the red button had no effect. The humming increased, louder, almost as if the machine were alive. Then, without warning, the distortion expanded, the portal growing larger, and a soft wind blew through my apartment, carrying with it an unfamiliar scent, like ozone mixed with wet earth. I realized, with a sick twist of fear, that I had no idea what or who might come through next. And that's when I heard it. A faint whispering, soft but unmistakable, coming from the portal itself. Words I couldn't comprehend, in a language I had never heard, yet somehow resonating in my chest. I wanted to look away, to run, but my curiosity held me in place. The portal was alive. It was waiting. I knew in that moment that this wasn't just a joke anymore. What I had built, what I had laughed about hours ago, was now a gateway to something far beyond my understanding. Something not of this world. And as I stared, frozen, I realized I had no idea what or who might come through next. The next morning, I woke up in a daze, the memory of the portal still vivid. My apartment looked exactly the same, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing was as it had been. The humming had stopped, and the device sat silently on the floor, blinking intermittently. I stared at it for what felt like hours, unsure if I wanted to touch it again or destroy it forever. Curiosity won, as it always does. I powered the device cautiously, hoping to understand what had happened. The red light glowed faintly, and a ripple of air stirred across the floor. The portal hadn't fully disappeared. It had shrunk, almost invisible, like a reflection in a window. I leaned closer, holding my breath, and that's when I saw it. A figure approaching. It was humanoid, but taller than any human I had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with a faint silver-blue glow, and its eyes, or what I assumed were eyes, radiated light like tiny stars. It moved slowly, deliberately, gliding as if weight had no meaning. My first instinct was to run, but something about the figure held me in place. "Hello," I called, my voice trembling. The figure paused, tilting its head in a way that suggested it understood, yet didn't respond. Its movements were graceful, almost otherworldly. Then it gestured toward the portal, and I realized it was inviting me, or warning me. My heart pounded, and sweat beaded on my forehead. I had no idea whether this being was friend or foe. I tried to communicate, holding up my hands, making slow motions. The figure mirrored me, perfectly synchronized, and a strange calm washed over me. Despite the fear, I felt a flicker of trust. Then, almost imperceptibly, it raised one elongated hand toward the portal, and the shimmering intensified. The entire room seemed to vibrate with energy, and I realized the device wasn't just opening a window, it was stabilizing the portal, holding it open. I reached for my camera, hands shaking, capturing every moment. The figure began moving toward the portal, glancing back at me as if urging me to follow. A voice, soft, melodic, yet entirely inside my mind, resonated. "Come, you are ready." I froze. Was this a hallucination, a psychic connection, or had I truly opened a doorway to somewhere unimaginable? The portal widened, and through it, I could see a landscape that defied all logic. Floating mountains, rivers of liquid light, and forests that glowed softly. Two suns floated in the sky, casting overlapping shadows that created patterns that defied all logic. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly incomprehensible. Suddenly, the figure reappeared, beside me, and its presence brought a strange calm. "You will learn what you must, but the journey has only begun," it said. My pulse quickened. I realized that stepping through the portal was not the end of the adventure. It was merely the first step into a realm where rules I understood no longer applied. And as I looked out across the impossible landscape, I understood the truth. I was a stranger in a world beyond imagination, and every decision I made from this moment on would determine whether I survived or became lost forever. As I looked out across the impossible landscape, I understood the truth. I was a stranger in a world beyond imagination, and every decision I made from this moment on would determine whether I survived or became lost forever. I didn't move. I couldn't. My mind raced with questions. Who or what was that figure? What lay beyond the portal? And most terrifying of all, once I stepped through, would I ever come back? I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I reached for the device. The red light pulsed steadily, almost like a heartbeat, and the faint shimmer of the portal beckoned me forward. Every rational thought screamed at me to stop, to retreat to safety. But curiosity, that relentless force, pushed me onward. One step, then another, and suddenly I was falling, not in the sense of gravity, but as though the world itself had dissolved beneath me. The air around me was thick, shimmering with colors I couldn't name. Light refracted and twisted, creating patterns that danced across my vision. For a brief moment, I felt weightless, suspended in a place that seemed to exist between reality and imagination. My ears were filled with a low hum, vibrating through my bones, and the faint whispering I had heard before now swirled around me in a chorus of voices I could not comprehend. Then, as abruptly as it had started, the sensation stopped. My feet touched solid ground, and I staggered forward, blinking against a sky that shifted through hues of green, violet, and gold. Towering structures loomed around me, some organic, like enormous trees twisted into impossible shapes, others metallic and angular, glowing softly with energy. The ground beneath me was neither dirt nor stone, but a smooth, semi-transparent material that seemed to pulse lightly with every step I took. I turned, expecting to see the portal behind me, but there was nothing. I was entirely alone, or so I thought. From the corner of my eye, a movement caught my attention.
Figures emerged from the shimmering landscape, humanoid but unlike any human I had ever seen. Their skin reflected light like polished crystal, and their limbs moved fluidly, almost as if they were dancing. They noticed me immediately, tilting their heads in unison, watching me with eyes that seemed to hold infinite knowledge. Panic surged, but it was quickly replaced by awe. I raised my hands, trying to signal peace. To my surprise, one of the figures stepped forward. It spoke, or perhaps communicated directly into my mind. "You are far from home, yet you are expected." The words sent a chill down my spine. Expected? By whom? And for what? Before I could respond, the figure gestured to a nearby structure, a spiraling tower of crystal and light. A pathway opened beneath it, leading upward into the unknown. Something deep inside me urged caution, yet another part, curiosity, the same force that had led me here, pushed me forward. Each step toward the tower felt like crossing an invisible threshold, a bridge between fear and wonder. As I climbed, I noticed subtle details, strange symbols etched into the walls, floating orbs of light that hovered without moving, and creatures in the distance moving in harmony with the environment. The air was filled with a low, resonant vibration, almost musical, and I felt as though the entire world was alive, breathing around me. Reaching the top of the tower, I found a platform that offered a breathtaking view of this alien world. Rivers of liquid light wound through forests that glowed softly with a bioluminescent sheen. Mountains floated in the distance, and in the sky, two suns cast overlapping shadows, creating patterns that defied all logic. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly incomprehensible. Suddenly, the figure reappeared beside me, and its presence brought a strange calm. "You will learn what you must, but the journey has only begun," it said. My pulse quickened. I realized that stepping through the portal was not the end of the adventure. It was merely the first step into a realm where rules I understood no longer applied. And as I looked out across the impossible landscape, I understood the truth. I was a stranger in a world beyond imagination, and every decision I made from this moment on would determine whether I survived or became lost forever. The air here was thick with a strange energy, tingling against my skin like static electricity. Every step I took on the translucent ground sent faint pulses of light across the surface, as though the planet itself was aware of my presence. The figure that had guided me remained nearby, gliding effortlessly, its glowing eyes fixed on me as if measuring my intentions. I took a cautious step forward, scanning the alien landscape. The floating mountains shimmered above me. Rivers of liquid light wound through forests that glowed softly with a bioluminescent sheen. Strange creatures moved in the distance, some humanoid, others almost unrecognizable, their forms twisting and flowing like liquid metal. My mind raced with questions, but I forced myself to stay calm. Suddenly, a sound echoed across the platform, a low, resonant hum, unlike anything I had ever heard. The creatures in the distance froze, their attention turning toward the source. The figure beside me tilted its head, and I sensed a warning. Something was approaching. From the mist between two glowing trees emerged a tall, serpentine being, its body coiling and uncoiling with fluid grace. Its scales shimmered with colors that shifted with every movement, and its eyes, large and unblinking, seemed to pierce through me. My heart raced, and my hands instinctively reached for the device still strapped to my backpack. The figure beside me moved closer, placing a hand, or what I assumed was a hand, on my shoulder. "Do not act in haste. Observe first," it communicated directly into my mind. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity, and the creature approached, circling slowly. Its movements were mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, yet there was a sense of intelligence behind its gaze. I raised my hands in a gesture of peace, recalling the earlier interaction with the humanoid figure. To my surprise, the creature paused, tilting its head as though studying me. A faint vibration coursed through the air, resonating in my chest, and for a moment I felt a strange connection, a silent communication beyond words. Then, without warning, the ground beneath the creature shimmered, and a burst of light shot upward, forming a portal-like distortion in the air. Through it, more beings appeared, some similar to the first, others entirely alien. My pulse quickened. Was this a gathering, a test, or a trap? The guiding figure remained calm, its presence steadying me. "They are aware of you now. How you respond will determine your path," it said. I took a deep breath and focused on remaining calm, letting curiosity override fear. I stepped forward slightly, and to my astonishment, one of the approaching beings extended a limb or appendage in what I interpreted as a gesture of greeting. A wave of relief and awe washed over me. I realized that this world, as incomprehensible as it was, operated on rules entirely different from Earth. There were dangers, yes, but there was also the possibility of understanding, of communication, if I paid attention. Every instinct screamed caution, yet another part of me thrilled at the opportunity. And as I observed, I noticed symbols etched into the glowing soil beneath us, lines and shapes that seemed to pulse in harmony with the creature's movements. My mind raced, trying to decipher patterns, to understand meaning. Could this be a form of language, a way of conveying knowledge through light and motion? Before I could ponder further, the guiding figure turned to me, eyes glowing brighter than before. "Follow me. You must see what lies beyond the river." Hesitant yet determined, I took a step forward, my fear tempered by wonder. Every sense was heightened, the colors, the sounds, the strange tactile sensation of the air itself. And then, As we moved toward the river, I realized something chilling. This world was alive in ways I had never imagined. Not just the creatures, not just the structures, but the environment itself, responding, observing, maybe even judging every action. I didn't know what awaited us on the other side, but one thing was certain. Stepping into this realm had irrevocably changed me. Every decision, every movement, every glance could hold consequences I could not yet foresee. The journey had only begun, and the deeper I went, the more I understood that curiosity, bravery, and caution would all be tested in equal measure.
The glowing river ahead twisted and pulsed like a living entity. Its liquid light reflected onto my skin, making me feel weightless, yet strangely heavy at the same time. My guide, the humanoid figure, moved gracefully alongside me, its eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. I could feel a tension in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. We had barely stepped onto the riverbank when the first warning came. A low rumble, deep and resonant, vibrated through the ground. I froze, realizing too late that the sound wasn't coming from the earth. It was coming from the shadows across the river. Shapes began to emerge, long and serpentine, moving with speed that made my stomach twist. They were unlike anything I had seen before, blending features of multiple creatures I had previously observed, yet twisted and darker, more menacing. The humanoid beside me extended an arm, or what I assumed was an arm, and the shadows paused briefly. The figure spoke, or projected thoughts directly into my mind. They test newcomers. Do not panic. Show intent. I swallowed hard, my palms sweating. Intent? What kind of intent could they recognize? I had no weapons, no knowledge of this place, and yet, instinctively, I stepped forward, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. The shadows circled us, fast and silent. I could feel their presence pressing against my mind, probing, searching. Then, one of them separated from the group, rising higher than the rest. Its form was more distinct, eyes glowing red, limbs jagged, with a posture that radiated hostility. My heart pounded. I tried to stay calm, but every instinct screamed danger. Suddenly, the air itself seemed to shift. The flowing river of light roared, splashing luminous droplets into the air, creating a blinding shimmer. The hostile figure lunged forward. I froze. Time slowed, each heartbeat hammering against my ribs. But just as I thought I was about to be attacked, my guide stepped in front of me. Its body glowed brighter, and a pulse of energy radiated outward. The hostile figure recoiled, a soundless screech echoing in my mind. Focus your mind. Feel the energy of this place. Connect, the guide instructed. I closed my eyes, trembling, and tried to sense the vibrations of the environment. At first, I felt nothing. Then a faint warmth, like a pulse, spread from the river, through the ground, through my feet, through my chest. The shapes hesitated, swaying as though unsure. With a deep breath, I extended my hands, trying to mirror the guide's posture. The hostile figure froze mid-lunge, tilting its head as though confused. My pulse raced, and I felt an unexpected surge of confidence. The creatures, the river, even the air itself seemed to acknowledge me. I didn't fully understand it, but somehow I had passed their first test. The shadows retreated, dissolving into the mist, leaving the path clear. My guide turned to me, and I felt a subtle nod of approval, almost like pride, yet the warning was clear. This was only the beginning. Beyond the river lay challenges far greater, dangers I couldn't imagine, and choices that could determine my survival. I looked back at the portal that had brought me here. It shimmered faintly, a reminder that I could leave, but I couldn't. The thrill, the fear, the unknown, it had me completely captivated. One step at a time, I realized. I had to learn the rules of this world, or risk being lost forever. And as I continued along the glowing path, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the depths of the shifting landscapes, a greater presence was watching, waiting, judging. The glowing path wound deeper into the alien landscape, its luminescent edges pulsing like a heartbeat. I followed my guide cautiously, aware that every step I took was under observation. The world itself seemed alive, reacting to our presence. The air shifted, colors danced, and the river of light hummed softly, like it was communicating. I realized I had entered a place that obeyed rules completely foreign to my understanding. "Pay attention," my guide communicated, not with words, but directly into my mind. "Everything here has purpose. Everything responds." I concentrated, trying to feel what it meant. I noticed that the ground beneath me pulsed faintly in rhythm with my steps.
The trees and crystalline structures seemed to bend subtly as I approached, almost guiding my movement. When I lifted my hand, the floating orbs of light followed, drifting around me as if acknowledging my presence. "Connect with it," the guide urged. "Let it teach you." I closed my eyes and focused, trying to sense the energy of this world. At first, there was only confusion, a dizzying swirl of colors, vibrations, and whispers. But then, gradually, I began to detect patterns. The river's flow responded to my heartbeat. The lights pulsed when I moved my hands. The air seemed denser when I felt fear, lighter when I embraced curiosity. It was as if the world itself could read me, and in return, I could read it. Testing this newfound connection, I extended my hands toward a small crystal hovering near the path. To my astonishment, it tilted, then floated closer. My pulse quickened as I realized that I could influence elements of this world simply by intention, focus, and emotion, shaping the physical environment around me. The guide observed, eyes glowing softly. "You must learn to control this. Your thoughts, your fears, your courage, they all have weight here. One misstep, and you will not survive." I took a deep breath and walked forward, practicing control. A fallen branch blocked the path ahead. Concentrating, I extended my hands, imagining it lifting. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the branch began to rise, hovering in the air, then gently moving to the side. I exhaled, awed at the simple success. This world, I realized, demanded mindfulness. Panic or rashness could be fatal. Calm, focus, and observation were tools I had never truly valued on Earth. As we continued, I noticed other creatures in the distance, observing me from their territory. Some were curious, tilting their heads or gliding closer, while others kept a cautious distance. The guide explained silently, "Every being, every element is part of a balance. Respect it. Understand it. Your survival depends on it." Hours, or perhaps days, time seemed distorted, passed as I practiced, learning small manipulations of light, gravity, and sound. Each success built my confidence. Each failure reminded me of my fragility in this strange realm. But slowly, I felt a strange synergy. I was not merely a visitor here. I was a participant. Finally, the guide led me to a high cliff overlooking a valley bathed in shifting auroras. Below, a series of structures radiated energy in rhythmic patterns. I sensed a challenge, an unseen test waiting for me. My guide's presence was calm, but firm. "This is your next step. Observe carefully, act with intent. The trial begins soon." I felt a thrill of fear and anticipation. My training, limited though it was, would soon be tested. Everything I had learned, control, observation, patience, would all determine whether I could survive what was coming. And as I gazed at the valley below, the shimmering light seemed to pulse in response, almost as if the world itself were daring me to continue.
The valley below stretched endlessly, bathed in shifting auroras that painted the landscape in surreal colors. My guide paused at the cliff's edge, its glowing eyes fixed on the structures below. "This is your trial. What you choose to do, how you react, will determine your path," it communicated, and I felt a weight pressing on my chest. Stepping forward, I descended the cliff carefully, feeling the translucent ground pulse under my feet. Every step required attention. I knew that one misstep could trigger a reaction I wasn't prepared for. The glowing structures formed a maze of sorts, their walls moving subtly, as if alive. Shadows flitted across them, creatures I had never seen before, observing me silently. As I entered the maze, the air shifted. A low hum resonated through the structures, vibrating through my chest. Shapes began to move along the walls, thin, elongated, and faceless, their forms bending and stretching unnaturally. Panic threatened to take hold, but I focused on my breathing and the energy I had been learning to control. A path opened to the left, illuminated by a series of floating orbs. Instinctively, I moved toward them, extending my hands to interact. The orbs pulsed in response, and suddenly a bridge of light formed across a chasm I hadn't noticed before. My pulse raced. I realized the trial wasn't just physical, it was mental. My focus, my calm, and my ability to manipulate this world determined my survival. Halfway across, the faceless figures advanced, moving faster, circling the bridge with eerie precision. The air grew thick, vibrating with tension. I extended my hands, summoning the energy I felt coursing through the landscape. The figures hesitated, pushed back slightly by the force of my concentration. My heart pounded. I had never used my abilities like this before. Then,
The largest of the figures lunged, stretching impossibly across the bridge. I ducked instinctively, the edge of the energy pulse grazing my arm and sending sparks of light into the air. The bridge wavered, threatening to collapse, but I focused harder, drawing on the calm and clarity I had developed over the past days. Slowly, the bridge stabilized, and the faceless figure recoiled. I made it across the chasm, my legs trembling, and entered a large chamber. The walls shimmered with symbols, glowing faintly. In the center, a floating sphere of light awaited me. I approached cautiously, hands extended. The sphere responded to my presence, its energy harmonizing with my heartbeat. I realized this was the final part of the trial, a test of connection, of intent, and of understanding this world's rules. As I touched the sphere, the chamber erupted in a cascade of colors, the auroras above reflecting through every surface. A voice, not spoken, but felt, resonated within me. You are learning. You are ready, but this is only the beginning. Greater challenges await. Suddenly, the floor beneath me shifted. A portal-like distortion appeared, showing glimpses of another location, darker and more dangerous. My pulse raced. The trial had ended, but the real journey, the tests, the dangers, and the mysteries, was only starting. I glanced at the guiding figure, and its glow brightened subtly, a silent affirmation that I had succeeded, for now. But I knew, deep down, that every choice I had made, every action, would be scrutinized by this world. One mistake in the next trial could cost me more than failure. It could cost me survival. With that thought, I stepped toward the new portal, heart hammering, mind racing, and curiosity overwhelming my fear. The unknown awaited, and I had no choice but to face it head on.
I stepped through the shimmering portal, the light folding around me like liquid silk. My stomach dropped as I emerged into a place that felt entirely hostile. Gone were the floating mountains and rivers of liquid light I had grown somewhat accustomed to. Instead, jagged cliffs stretched endlessly, shrouded in dense, swirling mist. The sky was a bruised purple, streaked with flashes of lightning that cast long, unnatural shadows across the landscape. Immediately, I felt the weight of danger pressing down on me. The air was thick and heavy, carrying an acrid smell, almost like burning metal. Each breath burned my lungs slightly, reminding me that this world operated under rules I did not yet understand. My guide hovered nearby, its glow dimmer than before, as if cautious of the environment itself. Be vigilant, it communicated directly into my mind. This place tests your instincts, your awareness. One wrong step could be fatal. As I moved cautiously across the cracked, uneven terrain, shapes began to stir in the shadows. They were fast, barely perceptible, moving in ways that defied logic. Some had multiple limbs, others no recognizable limbs at all, just eyes or glowing appendages that drifted along the ground like smoke. My pulse raced, and every instinct screamed to run, but I forced myself to remain calm, relying on the focus I had been developing. A sudden screech split the air, and a creature burst from the mist, a massive predator with elongated limbs and teeth that glinted in the dim light. It charged toward me with terrifying speed. I froze for a heartbeat, then instinctively extended my hands, channeling all the energy I had learned to control. A pulse of light radiated outward, momentarily staggering the creature. It recoiled, snarling, and the ground beneath it seemed to ripple in response to my focus. The guide moved between us, its glow flaring as if amplifying my ability. I realized I wasn't completely powerless here. I could affect the environment if I concentrated, but only cautiously. One more mistake and I could trigger a cascade of events I wouldn't survive. The predator recovered and lunged again. I ducked, rolling across jagged stones, feeling a sharp pain in my shoulder. The creature was relentless, and yet every time it attacked, the world seemed to respond subtly to my fear and focus. Slowly, I learned to anticipate its movements, guiding its path with pulses of energy until finally it retreated into the mist, leaving a silence that was almost deafening. Shaken, I realized that survival here demanded not only courage, but complete awareness. The landscape itself was alive, reacting to intention, emotion, and attention. Even a slight misstep could attract attention from entities far more dangerous than the creature I had just faced. The guide gestured toward a narrow passage between two jagged cliffs, pulsing faintly with light. Forward, it communicated. The trial continues. You must adapt to the dangers of this realm. Hesitation is lethal. I moved forward cautiously, muscles tense, senses alert to every movement, every shadow, every whisper of sound. The mist swirled thicker, and I glimpsed distant figures, perhaps larger than any predator I had seen, gliding silently through the haze. Their intentions were unknown, and the uncertainty tightened my chest like a vice. Somewhere ahead, faint lights flickered, perhaps the remnants of structures, perhaps more dangers lying in wait. My guide's presence was steady, but I understood that ultimately I had to rely on my own perception, my own instincts. And as I stepped deeper into the dark realm, a creeping realization set in. This world was testing more than skill or courage. It was testing judgment, resilience, and adaptability. One wrong decision could mean the end. The unknown pressed in from all sides, and yet, despite the fear, the thrill of discovery drove me onward.
The dark realm seemed endless, its jagged cliffs and swirling mist pressing in from all sides. My every step was cautious, my senses stretched to the limit. The predator from before had disappeared, but the feeling of being watched never left me. Shadows twisted in unnatural patterns, and distant sounds, some like whispers, others like grinding stone, made my pulse quicken. Then, in a narrow canyon between two towering cliffs, I saw movement, intentional movement. At first I thought it was another predator, but the figure was upright, humanoid, though taller than any human I'd ever seen. Its skin shimmered with dark silver and faint bioluminescent markings that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. I froze. My guide hovered behind me, glowing faintly, and sent a silent warning. Observe. Do not act rashly. The humanoid stepped forward, its movements fluid and deliberate. A voice, or perhaps a projection directly into my mind, echoed softly. You are not of this world. Yet, here you are. Why? I swallowed hard, my own voice shaking as I tried to speak out loud. I came through a portal. I didn't mean to. The humanoid tilted its head, studying me carefully. Its glowing eyes scanned me in a way that made me feel both exposed and assessed. Then, surprisingly, it extended a hand, motioning for me to follow. I hesitated, unsure whether this was a trap or an offer of guidance. My guide nudged me forward, glowing brighter. Trust, but remain cautious. Their intentions will reveal themselves. I stepped closer, and the humanoid led me through the canyon, moving with effortless grace. The mist swirled around us, reacting to our presence, thickening, shifting, and then thinning as if parting the path. I realized quickly that this being understood the dark realm in ways I could not yet comprehend. After what felt like hours of careful walking, we reached a platform overlooking a vast chasm where massive structures loomed in the distance, jagged and glowing faintly. The humanoid paused, turning to me. You have potential, but potential alone will not save you. This world tests more than skill. It tests judgment, courage, and the will to survive. Before I could respond, the ground trembled violently. From the shadows below, a massive creature erupted into view, eyes glowing red and limbs sprawling like twisted branches. It charged toward the platform, its roar shaking the rocks beneath us. I instinctively reached for my device, but my guide whispered urgently, "Not this time. You must rely on yourself." My heart raced as I faced the creature. Fear threatened to overwhelm me, but the humanoid's calm presence gave me strength. Slowly, I extended my hands, focusing all my energy. The air shimmered, pulsing with light that radiated from me, surrounding the creature. It faltered, then recoiled, confused by my sudden command over the energy. The humanoid observed silently, nodding once. You are learning. Control comes through connection, not force. The creature retreated into the darkness, leaving us in a tense silence. I realized the figure wasn't just a guide, it was a test itself, teaching me how to navigate a world where the environment, creatures, and even unseen forces were intertwined. Follow me, the humanoid said, turning toward a distant glowing structure. Beyond there lies your next trial. What you learn now will determine your path through the dark realm. As we walked, I couldn't shake the thought this being could be a friend or a foe. Its intentions were unclear, and every step I took was a careful negotiation of trust and caution. One misstep could prove fatal, but ignoring its guidance might cost me even more. And as the glowing structure came into view, larger and more ominous than anything I had seen before, I felt a mix of dread and excitement. The trials were escalating, the dangers multiplying, and yet I knew I couldn't turn back.
The glowing structure loomed ahead, jagged and immense, its surface pulsing faintly with an energy that seemed alive. My guide, the humanoid figure, floated silently beside me, its bioluminescent markings flickering in the dim light. The trial of shadows awaits you. It communicated directly into my mind. You must prove your understanding of this world or be consumed by it. I swallowed hard, adrenaline surging through my veins.
The path ahead was narrow, flanked by cliffs that dropped into mist-filled chasms. Shadows moved unnaturally along the walls, slinking and stretching in ways that defied physics. I realized immediately that this trial was designed to test every skill I had learned so far: focus, control, awareness, and courage. As we entered the structure, the air thickened. Every step I took seemed to echo, yet no sound returned, only a pressure in my chest, as if the building itself were alive and judging me. Suddenly, the floor shifted beneath us, creating a pathway of floating stones across a glowing abyss. My pulse quickened, but I concentrated, using the energy I had learned to manipulate. The stones stabilized, holding my weight as we advanced. Then the shadows struck. Forms coalesced from the darkness, elongated and faceless, moving with blinding speed. I reacted instinctively, extending my hands to push them back. Light pulsed outward, and for a moment the shadows recoiled, but they quickly regrouped, attacking in waves. The humanoid guide moved beside me, glowing brighter, as it amplified my control over the energy. Trust your instincts. Work with the flow, not against it. I focused on the rhythm of the shadows, noticing that they responded to my intentions, hesitating when I concentrated and striking when I faltered. Together, we moved as one. I directed pulses of energy, the guide synchronizing its power with mine. Each wave of light pushed back the shadows, opening a path forward. Despite the terror, a strange exhilaration surged within me. I was learning to master the rules of this world in real time, under life-threatening pressure. Halfway through the trial, a massive shadow separated from the rest. Its form was grotesque, limbs stretching impossibly, eyes glowing crimson. My heart pounded as it lunged directly at me. Instinctively, I extended all my focus, creating a barrier of light that deflected its strike. The creature recoiled, but I realized my control was not perfect. Any lapse could prove fatal. The humanoid guided me silently, showing subtle cues: when to push, when to pull, how to anticipate the next attack. Slowly, through fear and instinct, I managed to repel the massive shadow entirely, forcing it to dissolve into the darkness. The remaining waves of shadows dispersed, leaving the chamber eerily silent. I exhaled, trembling but alive. The humanoid turned to me, eyes glowing warmly. You have passed this trial. But remember, every challenge here grows more complex. The shadows were only the beginning. Greater forces will test your resolve, your understanding, and your courage. Ahead, another corridor opened, brighter and more foreboding than before. My pulse raced. I realized that surviving the Dark Realm wasn't just about strength. It was about adaptation, learning, and the willingness to face the unknown. As we moved forward, I glanced back at the shadows I had defeated, now nothing more than echoes of energy. A chill ran through me. The trial was over, but the world had already begun teaching its harshest lessons. And I understood, with sinking certainty, that nothing could prepare me for what awaited beyond the next door.
The corridor ahead pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, and the air felt heavier, charged with energy I could barely comprehend. My guide hovered silently, its glow dimmed in warning. Prepare yourself, it projected into my mind. The truth of this realm will reveal itself, and it will not be gentle. As we advanced, the walls shifted, forming a twisting labyrinth of light and shadow. Each turn felt alive, responding to my thoughts, my fears. I realized that this place was more than a world. It was a consciousness, an entity observing my every move. Panic bubbled beneath my calm, but I forced myself to focus. Every step, every breath, every thought mattered. Suddenly, the shadows from previous trials reappeared, more organized, moving with purpose. They weren't attacking randomly this time. They were coordinated, herding me toward a central chamber. My heart raced. I extended my hands, channeling energy to push them back, but they flowed around me, almost as if the labyrinth itself was guiding them. The central chamber loomed ahead, a vast expanse, walls etched with symbols that pulsed with ancient energy. In the center floated a massive sphere of light, brighter and more intense than anything I had encountered. My guide's glow intensified. This is the core. It holds the secrets you seek, but also the test you cannot ignore. I stepped closer, feeling a force tug at my mind. Images flashed before my eyes, visions of other worlds, beings of unimaginable power, and portals connecting realms I had never dreamed existed. Whispers filled my mind, speaking in languages I couldn't understand, yet somehow felt instinctively meaningful. My pulse raced as I struggled to focus, the energy threatening to overwhelm me. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall with an aura of authority. Its eyes glowed like molten silver, and it radiated power that made the air itself quiver. You have come far, mortal, but understanding comes at a price. Will you take it? I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to retreat, yet curiosity and the drive to survive pushed me forward. I raised my hands toward the sphere, feeling the raw energy flow into me. Images and sensations overwhelmed my senses, but I clung to the focus I had learned. Slowly, clarity emerged. The secrets of this realm, the rules, the balance, and the way to survive. The figure observed silently, then nodded. You see now. Power is not given, it is earned, and every choice has consequences. Suddenly, the sphere pulsed violently, and the chamber trembled. I realized the trial was not just knowledge, it was a test of courage, wisdom, and intent. A wrong move could shatter my mind or destroy me entirely. I focused, channeling my energy, shaping the forces around me with precision. Slowly, the pulses stabilized, and the core accepted my presence. The humanoid guide glowed brighter, a silent acknowledgement of my success. You have learned much, but the journey is far from over. Greater threats lie ahead, and the true nature of this realm has yet to reveal itself fully. I exhaled, drained but alive, staring at the sphere and realizing the truth. The dark realm was not merely a world, it was a crucible. It tested every part of me, and only by understanding its rules, mastering my fears, and embracing the unknown could I hope to survive. And as the energy of the core settled, I sensed a new path opening, a doorway to challenges far beyond anything I had faced so far. The stakes were never higher, and the unknown awaited with bated breath.
The path ahead was unlike anything I had encountered. The walls of the dark realm twisted impossibly, pulsating with energy, while the shadows writhed in shapes that defied imagination. My guide hovered close, its glow steady but tense. This is the ultimate challenge. Everything you have learned will be tested. One misstep, and the consequences are irreversible. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every choice I had made so far. Every skill, every lesson, every instinct, everything mattered now. The air itself seemed alive, responding to my heartbeat, my thoughts, my fear. I realized that in this final trial, hesitation was as dangerous as recklessness. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted violently, opening a chasm that stretched into darkness. From it emerged the largest shadow I had ever seen, far more massive and intelligent than any previous adversary. Its multiple eyes glowed crimson, and it moved with a speed and precision that sent a jolt of fear through me. I extended my hands instinctively, channeling every ounce of energy I had learned to manipulate. Light pulsed outward, colliding with the creature, but this time it fought back. The shadows seemed to anticipate my every move, flowing around and through my defenses, testing my focus and control. Beside me, the humanoid guide moved in perfect harmony, amplifying my power and showing subtle cues. Remember your training. Control comes from balance, not force. I focused, matching my breath to the rhythm of the dark realm itself. Slowly, I began to feel the flow of energy, not just around me, but within me. The massive shadow lunged and time seemed to slow. I extended a pulse of concentrated light, directing it not outward, but inward, channeling it through my connection with the world. The creature hesitated, recoiling, as if my understanding of the realm itself was pushing back. I realized then that the trial was not about brute strength. It was about synergy, awareness, and mastery. Wave after wave of shadows attacked, each more complex than the last. I dodged, pushed, and redirected energy with every step, the humanoid guide synchronizing perfectly with my actions. The battlefield was a blur of light, shadow, and motion, but slowly, I began to gain the upper hand. Finally, the largest shadow shrieked, its form dissolving into a cascade of energy that was absorbed by the dark realm itself. Silence followed, heavy and complete. The air settled, the walls stopped pulsating violently, and the oppressive energy eased. I stood there, trembling but victorious, realizing that I had survived the ultimate challenge. The humanoid guide floated closer, glowing brighter than ever before. You have proven yourself. You understand the balance, the rules, and the flow of this world. But the journey is not yet over. The portals you opened are only the beginning. Greater mysteries await beyond them. As I looked back at the path I had taken, every trial, every shadow, every moment of fear and discovery flashed through my mind.
I understood then that survival was more than skill. It was understanding, adaptation, and courage in the face of the unknown. And as the final doorway ahead shimmered into view, I realized that the greatest adventure was still to come. The Dark Realm had tested me, shaped me, and prepared me for what lay beyond, a world even stranger, more dangerous, and more incredible than I could have ever imagined.
The final portal shimmered before me, larger and brighter than any I'd passed through. Its edges pulsed with a golden energy, warm and inviting, yet carrying an undercurrent of power that made my chest tighten. The humanoid guide hovered beside me one last time, its glow steady and reassuring. Beyond this lies the new world. What you discover there will define your future. Step carefully, but do not hesitate. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every trial, every lesson, every shadow I had faced in the Dark Realm. The ultimate challenge had tested me to my limits, and I had survived, not because of strength alone, but because I'd learned to understand, to adapt, and to master the flow of this world. Now, it was time to step into something entirely unknown. As I crossed the threshold, the air changed instantly. Gone was the oppressive darkness and jagged terrain. Instead, I emerged into a breathtaking landscape that defied imagination. The sky shimmered with multiple suns, each casting overlapping shadows in impossible directions. Rivers of luminous liquid twisted through forests that glowed softly, and towering structures, organic and crystalline, stretched high above me. Creatures of all forms, some humanoid, some unrecognizable, moved in harmony with the world around them, each interaction creating waves of energy that pulsed across the land. I felt an overwhelming sense of wonder and awe. This was not a place of trials or threats. It was a living, breathing world, thriving in balance. And I realized something profound. Every choice I had made, every test I had endured, had prepared me for this moment. The Dark Realm had been a crucible, shaping me into someone capable of navigating this extraordinary reality. The humanoid guide hovered beside me, its glow radiant. You have passed the test of fear, focus, and understanding. Now you may explore, learn, and contribute. The new world is alive, and it recognizes those who respect its balance. I stepped forward cautiously, each movement causing subtle ripples in the air, the ground, and even the sky. A group of creatures approached, their forms elegant and unthreatening. They observed me curiously, yet with a sense of trust, as if acknowledging the trials I had overcome. I realized that this world rewarded understanding, intention, and harmony, not dominance. Exploring further, I discovered structures filled with glowing symbols and devices that seemed far beyond human technology. Some seemed to respond to thought alone, others to gestures or sound. I felt an exhilarating sense of potential, the possibility to learn, to create, and even to shape reality itself. Yet I also understood the responsibility that came with it. The energy of this world was alive, reactive, and immensely powerful. Recklessness or arrogance could have consequences far beyond what I had faced in the Dark Realm. Balance, respect, and awareness were essential to thrive here. For the first time, I felt truly free, and yet aware of the gravity of what lay ahead. I could explore, learn, and grow, but I also had to remain vigilant. The new world was not merely a place of beauty, it was a test in itself, an endless frontier of knowledge, wonder, and danger. The humanoid guide gave one final nod before fading into the light, leaving me standing at the heart of this incredible new realm. Alone, yet empowered, I realized that my journey had transformed me. I was no longer a mere visitor. I was a participant, a student, and potentially a guardian of this world. Looking out across the landscape, I knew this was only the beginning. Countless mysteries awaited, civilizations to encounter, powers to understand, and challenges that could test even the limits of what I had learned. But for the first time, I felt ready. And as I took the first steps into the new world, I understood the ultimate truth. Adventure, growth, and discovery were eternal, and courage, curiosity, and understanding were the keys to navigating them.